They will abandon their assets that day, a day on which they will be so self-occupied in their own concerns that every other asset that they encircle their life around will have no meaning for them. And this is expressed beautifully in this ayah in Surah Takweer, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the chaos of that day when He says in ayat 4, وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ أُطِّلَتْ, and when the 10-month pregnant she-camel will be abandoned. And this is a full-term she-camel who has done 10 months of pregnancy, about to deliver and give birth any time, a status symbol for Arabs who wouldn't leave her. She's a huge commodity, and she will give birth to another huge commodity too, another vessel of the desert, the ship of the desert, which carried people or the cargo or both through night and days, through sandstorms, like an expensive 4x4 of today. Yet the camel will provide them fuel to cook and to keep themselves warm in the cold desert nights too. But then why will they neglect this 10-month pregnant camel? Why will they neglect this expensive asset that they invested so much in? This reflects that people will be so preoccupied with something else, something extremely scary, fearful, tragic. So much so that their assets they spent so long looking after will have no value for them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in Surah Al-Abasa, ayat 37, لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. Every one of them will be too engaged in his own affairs to care for others. Everyone will be preoccupied with their sha'un, their preoccupation that day. And so literally this ayah does mean that they will leave their pregnant camel, abandoning her. And scholars extrapolate, saying that it implies also that everyone will come empty-handed that day except for their good deeds. A time will come when worldly assets will lose their importance. They will have no value on the day of judgment. Sometimes you lose something, but you still remember it. But here the wording of this ayah suggests that not only will the assets be abandoned, but the fear of the events of that day will make them forgotten assets too. So on such a day, on that day, ask yourself, when everything loses its value, what will you take with you? When the property, degrees, clothes, jewels, businesses that may have become top priority for us in this world will be left behind. When the cars of millions and mansions of billions will be worthless, of no value. And it's as if you left your homes open, or our ATMs are all open, or the deposit boxes and vaults of all the banks are all open, and no one cares. Everything just lost its value. And this word al-ishar is like a compound investment that is constantly growing. It's one thing you run after and one thing you don't leave behind. And even in a normal emergency, the ishar is that which you will carry with you, even in an emergency landing. But here Allah expresses that that commodity will also be left behind when what? إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْقَدَرَتْ وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ سُيِّرَتْ وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ أُطِّلَتْ. When the sun will be folded up, and when the stars will swoop down, and when the mountains will be set in motion, and when the 10-month pregnant she-camel will be abandoned. The sun, the stars, the mountains will change. People will be heedless of their prize assets, heedless of commodities, even the most possessive of possessions, those that they spent their whole life hanging around, their business or their time. Their day hung around preserving these things, sometimes at the cost of ibadat too, of praying salah on time, of being generous to others, of feeding the needy and poor, of fulfilling our faraid to others and our zakat and our sadaqat, compromising on the things that really mattered and would have been the only entities that would have gone with us as good deeds on that day. And this ayah highlights the extent of that calamity. وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ أُطِّلَتْ, when the 10-month pregnant camel will be abandoned.